Happy Juneteenth, y'all. This year, I wanted to celebrate the intersectionality of liberation by talking to some of my favorite Black community organizers and activists. Today, I'm talking to Atlantis Narcisse, the founder of Save Our Sisters in Houston, Texas. She is absolutely incredible, and I cannot wait to share our conversation with y'all. You can find out more about how to help Atlantis and Save Our Sisters at LizzoLovesYou.com. It's Atlantis. I'm Houston, Texas too now. We got some H-Town energy in the room.
Baby.
I wanted to just connect with you. I'm celebrating all of my favorite activists. And, last year for the Juneteenth Giveback, we supported Save Our Sisters, which is your organization. So I just wanted to catch up with you about how the last year has been.
Last year has been a year of growth and empowerment, and self-determination and self-grounding. It makes me realize we have so much of a mission to do, and that the work that I've started has really built out so many other small orgs doing other things too. So it's been great. We were able to hold down a space. Look, we had paid rent up for a year. We was able to have a little room space. We were able to get a little CFO in here to make sure we was on the budget because they come after us first. So able to do that. And then we were able to empower other trans women who had never had the opportunity to be cultivated in the path of this nonprofit sphere, right? To go to conventions and to meet and greet with each other, to have conversation. In this fight, we have to understand that though we are in the South, we also hold a key to other peoples to how to fight this and move this, because Texas is basically the blueprint of anything extra when it comes to the South. So one thing we don't realize is that we don't have those professional services available, which tears us down, right? So having a CFO helping us get our books together, keeping us ready for audit, but even more powerful to be able to send trans women to conferences, right? To connect with sisterhood, to connect with that Black hug, because that Black hug comes with a lot of love, and to bring up a new line or pipeline of women to be positive, to stand for Houston. We know that Houston is the fourth largest city, but to know that my dog has more rights here protecting her than me, to know that I could be kicked out of my apartment because of trans, and then with all this political stuff and the way that I was mentioning earlier, for every $100 that go to queer orgs, trans orgs get 4 cents of that $100. Notice I said trans orgs. Imagine what Black trans orgs get. So the money that you gave and blessed us with was a life-saving in the moment. I had literally walked out there on faith last year when I was like, I'm gonna get this space and I'm gonna find a way, even if I have to pay for it myself out of my check or something, I'm going to find a way, and knock knock, here comes you. So thank you for that. One of the connection, I want to say this to you. I don't think you understand how powerful your arrival into the light is, mirror that of trans people, right? To walk in there as your authentic self, even when the world is hating you and trying to do everything against you, to stand in that power and to walk in your truth. So many people are watching you. Thank you for that visibility in those moments of vulnerability. And then thank you for remembering what sisterhood is, remembering what it was to be Black in Houston, and especially to be Black in Houston when you are a different demographic of gender identity.
Mhm. Oh, that is such a word. I was not expecting that. I was like, I'm here to uplift you. And I
We
truly
uplift each other.
I need it more than you know. But let's talk about Houston. Like we some A-Town. And by the way, you worked at the Montrose Center.
I worked at the Montrose Center. I started SOSU. I've been doing this for 20 plus years. There were 3 women who started the trans movement here in Houston. It was Monica Roberts and Dee Dee Waters and myself. For me to still be here and be able to tell that story, to know for a fact that when COVID came, no one was thinking about trans people, and that we worked the biggest number of gig jobs, from entertaining and from even the sex work that our people come to visit us. We were able to do COVID relief funding from my room. We gave out over 100K from my room. And I just bust my little butt to do what I need to do. And I'm gonna continue to do it because I really want to put people first over product. I want to bring back the humanity of this all. And I feel like here in Houston, the more and more we speak about community and being a Houstonian, I feel like trans people have been so enriched in Houston, Texas, from the makeup artists to the, you've been around, we're everywhere, and we're the ones who always greet with a hug and love. The fact that we have been the mothers of the whole LGBT movement and to be forgotten or to be seen as lesser is not always empowering. So my mission is to bring back the humanity of women, to let them define what womanhood is, but let them show the world what their trans identity is here in Houston.
You walk that intersection of Black and LGBTQ, and that can be such a fine line. And like you said, the Black and trans is like a whole different experience than, say, a white trans person or any other. Can you talk about navigating that intersection and how allies and even the queer community could be more inclusive and understanding?
I have this statement that even in the civil rights, no one got to be comfortable. So I say that to our allies. If you are being an ally and you're being comfortable in it, you're not being impactful. It comes off as performative. We have to understand that there is not just only Black people could take care of Black people, right? We have to understand that power and privilege lives in all of us. It's how we choose to navigate it. And allyship is a unique relationship. The first thing I always say is to be present and personable, to not come in and be performative. A lot of times we get people come in and be performative and tokenize us, and sometimes in those spaces we are starving, so we tokenize for the bare minimum. We don't even negotiate that in this space. But here in Houston, knowing that we set the blueprint for all the other South states when it comes to that, I am glad that we are showing them that we cannot go back under a rock. I don't want people to feel like we're being defeated. No, we're out here living out loud. We're standing up. We're doing what we need to. I was just speaking at the commissioners board, and then just being acknowledged at the Chambers Award for the legacy theme, being acknowledged at Houston Rockets. Those are areas that if you put it in those spaces and make it where they see it, we start associating that vision with social norms, right? Oh, there can be trans people. Oh, that's just a trans person. They don't even, but to realize that really I'm a human being and that trans was meant for my medical records and not meant to be an introduction to every room I walk into. And you don't have to say I'm a Black trans woman. I think we could see it.
Black baby. How can we work towards ensuring that the Black community stands united in support of all of its members, the trans members of the Black community?
I think when we start normalizing doing it on our platforms, that's one way. I think when we stand up in the rooms, when we hear someone's making something derogatory about a queer or a trans or gender expansive person, that we correct them, and respond like that's a human being. At all points of life, we could always be better to each other if we get out our own ways. I always say we complicate it. Stop thinking about you that you're taking care of a trans person that's Black, that lived this way, that's 6'3". Think about it that you're taking care of a human being that is supposed to have the same rights as you. And now you are challenging them for something that is deemed their personal agency.
Sometimes it feels like there's a slight hostility in like having these conversations, especially I've seen between Black trans women and Black cisgender women. I've been seeing
Mhm.
that conversation happen a lot. It's an intense topic.
I love that topic. No, I love it because when I started SOSU, I started with a retreat with cis women and trans women for 2 days out the weekend. They got paid over $1,000. I worked with a doctor and we sat in rooms and we asked ourselves, what does it mean to be a woman? And in that room, we separated the cis women from the trans women, asked them to write the stereotypes that they hear about themselves or they fear. Coming back together in those spaces, Lizzo, what we saw was that we all had the same thing and the same insecurities in different orders. And what we realized was that it was society and the men that we were dating pitting us against each other. To realize that if we are in-house fighting as women, we can't push for the glass ceiling. We can't go up there and advocate. It's a distraction too. So they pit that, of course, with the value of masculinity. But when it comes to this area of cis and trans, I always say that regardless of how you see or view a trans person, they still become part of the females movement, the woman's movement, right? They still impact how stuff going in there. Sometimes our cis sisters are voting against their own interests when they try to vote against stuff to block trans people like HRTs. Then they have to go through the same loops we have to go through insurance or for PrEP,
What's the HRTs again?
hormone replacement therapy. So when we play with those things, we don't realize that it impacts all of us. You think you're stopping one demographic, but you're personally voting against your own interests.
It's actually so true. It's where it's not a self-hatred, but we've internalized so much about ourselves that we are actually the ones sometimes keeping ourselves back.
The oppressed becomes the oppressor, and it's easier for us to say when somebody's boot is on our neck, but not when we're doing it. But also, let's just be honest and be realistic that society, when it comes to females and women, and when it came to Black women, has always beat us down and pitted us against each other. Of course, when you feel a trans woman coming in is possibly taking something from you, and if you deem it in society starts saying it, yes, you feel that way. We barely eating here. Y'all come trying to take away from the little we got. It's the mentality. But the thing is that we are stronger together than we are apart.
I think one of the biggest things for me, or one of the first issues I saw, was protecting Black trans women, because there's so much violence, and a lot of times undocumented violence, at such an insane rate, like that happens towards Black trans women. And I wish that I knew how, more than just say it on stage, protect Black trans women, because I would scream it at my shows, like,
Mm-hmm.
how else, can you talk about that a little bit more
Yeah,
about?
I can. One, we could never eradicate trans women's murders, right? And we know for a fact that Black women across the world are going missing and abused at alarming rates that nobody's saying. So it's just a thing on Black womanhood. But what it is that because society has deemed us as deviants, and no, as I said, my dog has more laws protecting her than me. Why would they think of that? And the value of masculinity, because most of the time it is people who look like me, Black people that are killing trans people. We just had a murder over here in Houston about a month or two ago. With that response, I saw the most disgusting things. So from that, I started creating this community response task force, where the community speaks up as one voice, one message, and we go in, we work in liaison with law enforcement and this stuff to make sure we have this. It was something we did not have for a person that's 52 years old and have been seeing this. I have never seen it. And I said, I should, yes, I said, I shouldn't be making more things. I should be thinking about retirement. But in all truth, let me say this. When you think about Black trans women and the risk behaviors, let me say it took me 15 years to get a job at Atlantis. And I can tell you in this 20 plus years of doing this, I don't have a 401k. I don't have a retirement. So of course, what happens? We stay in those increased risk areas. So it's really seeing the trans person as a evolving circle and not just at one point in their life, not a death narrative. Now the death narrative is real. What we do here at SOSU is that what we do is take everybody that has been taken away from us in this year, and we put their pictures on a panel with a positive story about them. Because what happens when a trans person is taken away violently? They become that death narrative when we forget that they were ever a person. So we do this, and the sad part is that it's outgrown our office, but eventually it will be an installation that I see building up called the House That Stigma Built.
Wow. Thank you for humanizing. That was a big thing for me. Like, I even had a song I wrote called Humanize Me, because even as a Black woman, a fat Black woman, I feel so dehumanized and so invisible and erased in society. And even at the heights that I've gotten to, it's still, the erasure still happens, you know. Now, can we talk about Save Our Sons and Brothers?
I'm such a mother of the community.
Mothering.
My son said that too, and he said, "Tell Lizzo I said hey." So my son said, "Hey." He's 33, but he says, "Hey." Save our sons and brothers. What I was realizing that when we were doing Hero, and when anything in media came up, it was always the trans woman that was under attack, right? And that it was okay to be a soft-spoken, short man than it was to be a tall, raspy voiced woman. But what I realized was that things were happening to them too. They needed a space. They were now starting to see numbers of sexual assaults of people doing that stuff. So what I wanted to do, but I did not want to be a trans woman speaking for trans men. I created a space, and I believe in mentoring up and open up that pipeline. So I created Save Our Sons and Brothers with two trans men who happen to be my son. My motto to my kids is me taking care of my family, now taking care of other families. So what they do is they meet and they have their socials and they do those things. And it's just a space to talk because we have to normalize conversations around the things that go with us. I think in Texas, I always say that it's going to be hard to hear about trans people when Texas in the South, it's hard to talk about sex, right? So we definitely don't want to talk about something with gender identity versus sexual orientation. And that's why I keep saying the LGBTQIA plus, that T is an identity versus an orientation. But even in that movement, you have seen it be LGBT and GLBT. You have never seen that T transition from out that last space until they start adding to it. That is a really message we should look at as people in the queer community.
No, that's actually such a good point because I think even outside of the queer community, that is what people get misconstrued all the time. They take your gender identity or your identity, whatever, and they sexualize it and hypersexualize it. Like
Mhm.
even drag queens reading to kids, like they've sexualized that. And it's like, well, this is just my expression. You know what I'm saying? This is who I am. Has nothing to do with sex. And you have such a great point about conversation. That is how you start to humanize people when you can open a dialogue.
But the fact that we don't, we're so amplified on anything trans or queer people do. We don't say anything about the cis men that dress up all across TikTok, all about social media as women and make mockery. We don't say anything about that. But yet, their masculinity is never questioned, their place or where they're going to do. Nothing is ever a threat to them. As a matter of fact, they probably get booked and bring in more money than I would bring in as an org doing it. But yet, in that space, they don't realize how toxic that could be because to sit there and play in a space like that, you are mimicking that impression that that is a man in a dress. And that's really where that come from, is from those people that do that social media play. Those are really the men in dresses. We are really the women, but we have yet to have a true chance to really introduce ourselves or define ourselves as trans people to society without mainstreams interrupting commercials.
We need to have conversations, honey. We have Save Our Sisters, we have Save Our Sons. What are the future goals and initiatives you have planned?
So we also have transcending gaming. We always say that we want people to see us as regular people in society, right? In order to do that, we have to make sure we escape Trans Island. And so what we do is we set up the game systems as people bring their game systems in a space, and we just where people play games. We know people are big in games, so they sit and they do that. Sometimes we have entertainment. We do prizes. Like I said, we're also doing the community task, community response task force.
What's the name of your task force?
Oh, it's the Community Response Task Force.
To the point,
Yeah,
okay?
straight to it, call it is, because we have to be cautious of naming things that they're attacking. Like, so naming a thing a trans law, that's stupid, you giving the thing. But currently, as I'm the only employed person here, and that's not really employed. So I do this stuff with the help of volunteers and myself. So my mission this year is to really try to bring in more funding and stuff like that to bring into a space where I could really operate this and not work three jobs and bring in people to work. This is as I said, I'm 52. And I think at some point I want to live my life. I've lived the front side of my life, the front side of 50, being this big community person. And I think at some point with everything in society telling us that we should not exist, that I need to exist so that I could talk about life and what it is living and not always people always respect the body of work I've done, but they forget about the body that has done the work. Right. And so that is a real thing. So I really want to hope to empower more trans women to step up to be in this pipeline. I do not want to paint an image that I am the representation of trans here in Houston because it's a very diverse look. And it's a dangerous claim to keep playing with only certain trans people because then we believe that's what trans people are supposed to look like, and it's not. I want to see more community networking, and I really want to redefine the word community and community and bring some of the humanity back into the front of the movement because we have to bring that humanity back. I got into this to take care of human bodies and to reach the hyper marginalized individuals that we're forgetting about.
Hyper marginalized. My God.
See, me and you are marginalized, but there are people who don't have the resources. That's the hyper marginalized, and we don't never have that conversation.
You are teaching me. That is something I've never even heard or thought about. That's a common thing that I've spoken to a few activists
Mhm.
this week, but over the course of my life, and I've noticed that like the activism sometimes supersedes their life, and their life is activism and activism work, and it's like sometimes you kind of lose yourself in that, and people think that activism is just a post or a sometime thing, but it is like every single day.
My son said something to me, and it was so it hit me on a different way that I'd never thought about. He said to me, because I am his daddy and I take pride of that. That's the best thing I ever did. He was like, Daddy, I grew up spending my whole life sharing you with the community. He said, but now I am worried about you because
Mm.
I've seen you work yourself to be sick. I'm trying to make things work, and I don't see the community protecting you. I have never thought about in this work of being this advocate or this activist in this space, what impact it took on my life socially when it came to my relationship with my kid or with my partner or family members, anything outside of that. And to have, and I will say this, I have literally worked myself to I've had to be in the hospital. I have self-funded, I have seen other leaders doing it. Wellness was not in the blueprint for us, right? We're a unique unicorn, and wellness is not there. To say self-care or to even say vacations are words of privilege that we don't. A vacation for me was going to a funeral and having an extra day out of town while we was going to it. Self-care is such a foreign language. For us that's doing the work, we are also not just it's not just a profession, it's also a personal passion. And sometimes when you have built something up and birthed it like a baby, it's hard to cut that umbilical cord and transition it to just professional passion. But you see the wear and tear. You start seeing it, like I said, mentioning in my golden years. What does this look like for me? What if I get ill? What does this look like? What does sustainability look like? Who steps in for me to do this, to make sure we have this? So it is a lot of self-sacrificing. It's a lot of, the quote I use or the statement I use is that even museums, when they place something on a pedestal, they put this protective glass over it. For us, when society places us on this pedestal, they do nothing to protect us. And all this dust and all this stuff weighs down on us. And at no point in time when we take off our clothes are we fully naked.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
we are carrying everything through it. And that's why I was saying that black hug, that black love. I always tell my people, I hug you to charge you up and for me to be recharged. And also that for us as people of color, black people, however we want to say it, that skin to skin contact, I don't care what nobody say, it shares the blueprint. It shares the recipe. Our success is going to be in that connectivity. I need people to understand that trans people have probably did the work to exist on every role, from birth gender to social gender to affirming gender, right? And that we in Texas are under attack. So people always say, we go to your website, but it doesn't say all this. You don't do all this. Why would I give you the blueprint to block me?
Right.
So when we say, and that's why I want to come back and say, thank you for trusting trans leadership that we would do what we need to do with that money, because that's the thing. Everybody want us to do this dog and pony thing and this, and they don't trust trans leadership, and our landscape is ever changing. I mean, as a Black person, we know what it's like to deal with disparities. Imagine dealing that, and imagine that my transness dilute my Blackness. But I will go stand and fight for all them. I am not a trans activist. I'm a human rights activist that happens to be trans. There are so many other things I am before that trans thing. And as I said, that was meant for my medical records. You don't see me announcing to everybody else about their medical records. Hey, there go bipolar beta. You don't hear me saying that. But if I did it, it would be considered rude and insensitive. Why are we not thinking about that for trans people?
So true.
Mhm. Like I said, it's easy for people not to see it, but I would say that's part of allyship and part of helping that is what you're doing right now and this conversation that we're having that you're hoping to broadcast across. And the thing of making sure initiating more and more conversations like that. I think what we need to have is a community conversation, from different perspectives and have some real conversation, not PC conversations, because PC conversations keep marginalized people marginalized.
Exactly. I think people are afraid. That's that they not ready for this conversation. That's where that comes from.
Are we gonna lose money? Or I know some orgs where they perform the game for funding, like they won't say this and they won't do that. And I tell them that's not really helping our people. That's setting us up for failure.
Offending someone can also take away the value of education and learning. Like how else you gonna learn if you don't ask a question, if you don't stumble?
You know how all this started? By two words. What about?
Mm.
What about Black trans? What about this? And the thing is, I don't think we understand that even in real life, we should always ask in our questions, in our romance, in our careers. What about, meaning challenge yourself? What about this? Or challenge yourself to bring someone along, not someone alone, but to highlight something that is getting a light. Yes, I am 6'3", but I am the mother of the root system. If we have to understand the power of our root system. If we are not happy with it, stop feeding it.
I don't even have words after that.
I'm sorry. They tell me I'm always a TED talk, but I talk from my heart.
You truly do. And there's so much power and insight. And you don't even have to say much, you know what I mean, to get that point across. And, the other point that you made earlier about the laws in Texas and the landscape politically of America and how you have to protect yourself, even from help. You can't be like, oh, you want to volunteer? Here's the address. You can't trust everybody these days or ever, really.
There was a time here in Houston, Lizzo, I used to have to carry a bathroom letter around and ask permission to use the bathroom. And that always reminded, and so one time I was doing a presentation, and I pulled it out, and I had this moment of looking at this tear-tattered letter, and it made me feel like a free slave when they had to carry their papers. And I was like, it just goes to show you the symbolism of how we all mirror it just in different ways. But yeah, people don't think about what it is to be safe or what it is. The fact that in this work, Lizzo, I've been followed home. I've been cornered in my apartment. I've had someone tell me what time my roommates was leaving and that they'll be back. I've had things happen to me that people don't think when I put myself on the front line. There's no security that walks with me. Every day I'm taking a chance, but I'm doing it so somebody else can walk in freedom that identifies as me. I came up in a time where trans was not a language for me. That was not that for me. I had to learn to adjust to that. It's a foreign language to me. And nor had they really spoken to trans and gender expansive people, we probably would have never picked the term transgender to be something that's identified. And the fact that we use the word transitioning and stigmatize it for trans people, that is now impacting cis women when they go to the restroom. Everybody on earth transitions. You ain't the same size you were when you were born. I mean, we're not just, we transition from jobs, homes, and states. So we have to understand that when we use some language, that we sometimes add the stigma to it.
In the spirit of having a dialogue, you believe that even the language needs to, for lack of a better word, transition and
Mhm.
and become a little bit so less broad, maybe. What is your suggestion?
So I think we have to understand the evolution of language, and we have to understand like fashion, it repeats, right? Queer used to once be a bad word. Now we're taking that word back, right? Like stuff like that. So I think that we want to put people in boxes and we're forgetting that we are more like water. even though we may have a moment of being an ice cube. As an ice cube, we sit in that one spot, but as we thrive and melt, we expand and go anyway, have that freedom. I think we're trying to limit it ourselves. I think that we're not really paying attention to how perspectives have changed, and that all the work that I've done has led to the work where people could openly walk around free and do these things, that it pays a part. The language changes. What was queer and bad then is not queer and bad now. So yeah,
I remember when I was younger, the language around being trans was completely different, and what was socially acceptable is
derogatory.
derogatory and is derogatory. So you're right, and it happens fast.
Mhm.
It happens in it'll change multiple times in one person's lifetime. So now the question is like, what's next? And I feel like if trans people had a say in that, maybe it could
I
be
think,
better.
yeah, I think what's next is I think people need to understand that this is not a me agenda, but a we agenda. And that if they, we saw when they came after Roe versus Wade, we knew they were coming after gay marriage.
Mhm.
So think about it. There's a plan. I hate to say the old Project 25, but 2025. But the thing is, those infrastructures are already in place. That we've seen them actively going. If we want to be a community that really thinks about humanity and thinks about equity and having true balance, there are some areas that we have to walk into the room and realize that nobody's taking anything off our plate. And that if one person is not doing good, we're all not doing good.
That's why I say we ain't free until we all free.
Baby, and what is free? Free is a self free is a defined term, because some people think they're free while they're sitting there doing the plantation work. No offense,
I was just talking about this morning. Yep.
they do. But I have hope for us. I do believe that if nobody is doing it, then we have a problem. But some of us are doing it. So the thing is that we become a breeding ground of progression. Like I said, we're not going under no rocks anymore. Like we're here.
Period. We're here, absolutely, period. I just want to give life to you, and I just pray for you, and I thank you very deeply for the work that you do, because it's not even a work, it's your life. So thank you for your life. It matters so much to so many people. To me all the way over here and all of the people that you've touched in the Houston community and beyond. We thank you so much.